A few weeks ago, I was having a conversation with a new GSM, and I shared with them a truth that I'd like to share with you. And this is a truth that your ego is not going to want to hear, but I guarantee you the rest of you needs to hear this, that you don't need to prove that you're good. What you need to prove is that you're getting better. Yet so many of us get caught up once we get a new promotion, a new title, a new situation, that we somehow have to justify that was a good choice. We deserve our seat at the table. We belong here. And we spend an incredible amount of time, energy, and effort trying to prove that we belong, prove that we're good, when the only thing that you need to prove is that you're getting better. You have the ability to learn and grow. Every time that you make leadership about looking competent instead of becoming competent, you rob yourself of growth. And worse yet, you teach your team that it's about faking it and not fixing it. If there were one belief, one thing that I would beg you to get good at as a leader, is you must become significantly better at fixing it and not faking it. And the more you can instill in your culture that radical transparency, that radical honesty, and that sense of vulnerability, that in this company, in this place, we fix things, we don't fake things, you are way ahead of the game. Being good is about image. Getting better is about grit. And grit wins every single time. I'm Chris Hunsicker, and this is the Dealership War Room, Leadership Fire. 5 minutes, built daily, fueled intentionally, and delivered relentlessly. And today, we're going to look at how we put grit and growth together. So instead of faking it, you're fixing it. And instead of pretending like you're being, you're going to get focused on becoming. So let's dive in. High performers hate feeling exposed. And as a sales consultant or service advisor, you crushed it. That's why you're a manager now. But so many managers spend time, energy, and effort trying to prove that they deserve the title, to show that they earn their seat at the table. And when you're in that mode, what you end up doing is covering your weaknesses, hiding your gaps, and posturing instead of practicing. But here's what every great leader knows. It's not about proving, it's about improving. And that's what I'm going to ask you to look at today. Research shows people who adopt a growth mindset, they have a sense that skill and ability is built. It's not fixed. It's not either I'm a leader or I'm not. I'm good at this or I'm not. It is growable, that you can move it. And those people that have that growth mindset, that sense for learning and development, that they can build their skills, they tend to bounce back faster from failures. They persist longer when things get hard, and they adapt and change much more quickly. They see training, they see failure, they see struggle as training and not as judgment. And as a result, all the failure becomes feedback that they use and consume and then pivot and turn around and turn it into results. That's grit, not talent, not charm, grit. And here's the battlefield. You can't measure grit by how you feel. You measure it by how consistently you track progress towards your goal. And it's not just about wins. It's about understanding the distance between where you are and where you want to be. Because the scoreboard isn't just for recognition, it's also for correction. Your team doesn't need a flawless hero. They need a gritty leader who consistently is saying in words and actions, I can get better every day, and so can you. So now let's put those two things together, grit and growth. So grit, the persistence to keep going through, and growth, the ability to take feedback from the environment, learn, change, grow, and get better. I want to share with you 3 simple things you can do to expand your grit and your growth and combine them into your ability to absolutely execute for you and your team whenever you want. Number 1 is you need a progress scoreboard. And this is simple. And most of the elite leaders I've ever worked with use this all the time. That it's not just totals, we need to sell 50 units. It's, hey, we're pacing 45 units, so we need to pick up the pace by the end of the month. We need to do 4 units a day for the last 5 days, and we're going to hit our goal. In other words, you use that scoreboard as progress. We're looking at, okay, where do we need to get better? Where do we need to adjust? What do we need to do? Number 2 is where I see a lot of people struggle. This is where grit and growth can really step up. And that is make sure that every day, instead of asking yourself the question, am I good? Have I proved myself? Am I worthy? You're going to change that to the question of, am I getting better? We all have those head devils. We all have that part X in us that's constantly talking about saying, you're not good enough, you're not worthy, you can't do this. And we all have that. That's never going to go away. What you have to decide is, are you going to listen to that voice? And what I'm sharing with you is if you want to really build grit and growth, if you really want to get better, yourself and your team, you need to change the question from, am I good? Am I okay? To, am I getting better? And then when that's the question, you absolutely change your level of execution. Number 3 is what I call the resilience ritual. And every time you get knocked down, what I want you to do is step back and breathe. Remember we talked about that a few weeks ago, that 3 steps, and get that breathing, get focused, and then ask yourself, what's one system or what's one thing I need to change so that next time I approach this situation, I'm going to be successful. That's what I call the resilience ritual. You are going to create a ritual that every time something fails and doesn't work, you're not just going to try harder, but you're going to step back and say, hey, wait a minute, what do I need to change? What do I need to switch? What do I need to add to so that next time I go in, I'm going to succeed? Now, any one of those are incredibly helpful, but when you can do all 3 of those, you're tracking progress, you're asking the question about how do I get better, and then you're using a resilience ritual, what happens is your growth just accelerates. So now it's time to cross the insight to action bridge. And tonight, I'd like you to ask yourself this question. Where am I still trying to look good instead of get better? And be honest with yourself. You might even want to do this with a pencil. You might come up with 3 or 4 or 5 ideas and then narrow it down to the one. But ask yourself that question. Where am I still trying to look good instead of get better? And then I want you to run a little experiment. I want you to pick that one area, and then I want you to grit it out for 30 days. Track and measure your progress. Lean into the failure, and then really get focused on getting better instead of just looking good, on performance over image. Because leaders who commit to grit and growth, to growth over image, they don't just hit their numbers and their goals, they build unstoppable cultures. So let me come back to the GSM I was telling you about when we started. And this is the last thing that I said to him. I said, as you go out today, I want you to stop proving and start improving, because grit lasts and growth wins. Use that today. Go out, create some leadership fire, and I'll see you tomorrow in the dealership war room.